Hi everyone, my name is Jemilla and I'm here. You're watching Riyo's Conversations and we're here to talk about my new book, Bastens Legacy.
Hey guys, welcome back to Riyo's Conversations. Today I have with me our esteemed guest, Jemilla Mills-Smith, author of Bastens Legacy. I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
One, because I'm a bookworm and I love books.
Yeah.
Two, because I actually challenged myself this year to read more Black authors.
Okay.
And now here we are.
I've seen a trend of that lately.
It's
People
a
wanting
thing.
to read more Black authors. And
It's a
even
thing.
me too. I'm reading this book. It's one of the questions, but I'm reading this book. We'll get back to it. We'll get back to it.
I think what it is for me is more, being a bookworm, I read a lot of books. But I didn't realize until like end of 2019 that a lot of the books I've read are all like white authors.
It's the same for me.
And I'm like, we don't have Black people? There's no Black people writing books?
Yes.
So I was like, no, I need to get into this. So I went on my little journey, and I remember we connected on Instagram, and
Yes.
you were saying that you were writing one too, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great, this is good. And then I remember the post you put out when you were like finished, and I was like, I'm excited. Like I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I want to read this now. Like I know how much work she's been putting into it. I'm super excited to read it, and then boom. How does this feel?
My heart is like elated. I'm anxious in good ways and bad ways. Like I was contemplating whether I should self-publish, which is what I ended up doing, or if I should go to a traditional publishing company. But there was a whole process with that, and then Corona happened.
Yep.
And that was a lot.
Yeah.
And then actually a company I had contacted when I first started writing contacted me saying they had a promotion for their package, and they knew I was Canadian. And the one thing with self-publishing is that Indigo Chapters does not sell self-published work, and I didn't know that at first. So that's when I was like, oh, I'll just go to a traditional publishing company. But then they contacted me and said, no, actually we have a package so we can get you in the online store.
That is very cool.
So I'm like, okay, and then my name is on it. I get most of the royalties from it. I'm like, why wouldn't I choose it? The only thing is, it's not in the physical stores.
Got it.
That's not really an issue for me though, because again, no one's really going to the physical stores right
Everyone's
now
kind of more Amazon
at the
shopper.
moment.
Yeah.
But they have this part of their package where they make a custom sell sheet to try and get you into the room. But I have to do it all myself. So again, it's all of my own work, but
your
I know hard work.
Right now.
I can do it.
That is epic. Oh my gosh. Okay, well I have questions which I have written down because I was like, I have to just ask these questions. I'm just going to pull them up because my phone, for some reason, just likes to play games with me. Okay, first question, if it loads. Sorry guys, as you know, my phone always hates me.
I was trying to load it on my phone too actually, and it didn't work. I had to scramble to take a picture on my laptop. Yeah. Because it was just blurry for some reason.
That's what it was there as well. And I'm like,
okay. Interesting.
Okay, so first question. Okay. When did you know you wanted to write? Like, when was your I'm a writer moment?
Well, I've always loved to tell stories. Growing up, I did a bunch of different extracurricular activities. But the year of 2018, I was severely depressed. The entire year, and it was the closest I had ever come to wanting to commit suicide. And I say that proudly now, but back then it was very hard because I come from a traditional Christian Jamaican family, and saying that
Nigerian
admits weakness.
Yes.
Right? Luckily, you know Lauren.
Yes.
My country cousin, but technically she's my aunt. But we're the same age, so we don't call each other that. It's a Jamaican thing. She was there for me, very much so, but I was very depressed the whole year. It's not something I ever want to go back to. Yeah. And then New Year's Eve, I went to church, to Faith Church in Hamilton with my family. Yeah. And I just felt the Spirit of God. Like an awakening. And I felt saved. Cool. But then on the way back home, the idea for the plot just pops into my head, and I was just thinking to myself, that's a really good story. Someone should write that. And then I'm like, literally I'm like, girl, just write it. So
I think we have those moments a lot where we're kind of like, that'd be a great story that someone should write, and you're like, why don't I write it? Like, why am I not the person?
Yeah, January 1st I started writing it, and I immediately knew what the end goal was for the Trilogy series.
Wow. So there's more
to
to come.
Trilogy. Yeah, it's the first of 3.
Cool.
But
cool. You've heard it here first, guys.
It's the first of 3. There's going to be 2 more in this trilogy series,
cool.
and I have 3 more trilogy series up here.
Nice.
After this,
I'm excited.
But I didn't know where I wanted that book to end.
Okay.
So I just started writing, and then I was like, I should kind of have some guidance. So I actually got one of those dollar store Bristol boards and just wrote down the plot on Post-it notes.
Yep.
Like what I wrote so far and what I kind of imagined, and then I rearranged it, rewrote some of it, and then I had the plot line.
Nice. I think I've done that like that too, but I had construction paper. And I cut it up into little pieces, because for me, whenever a story hits, it hits in bursts. Right. So it's I can see chapter 15, but I can't see chapter 1. I can see chapter 9, but I can't see chapter 7.
That's kind of
so it was okay, so I remember doing that and then putting it all on the wall and being this is my story. And that was a story that's been in my head since I was 12. Oh. So it's been a story that I've been this would be so cool if I could tell this story. At 12, I was I want to hear a story like this. It's but someone else will write it.
Yeah. And
since 12, no one did. And I'm yeah, because you didn't. And I'm oh, my God. So it's one of those things, I guess, where you kind of do have to find that moment of instead of waiting for someone else to do it, you have to do it yourself. So that's pretty cool.
You were who you were waiting for, basically.
That is it, guys. That is it. That's a line right there. Okay, so I have to know, because I like to know what people's favorite books are.
Right.
So from childhood to now, do you have one favorite book?
I hate this question.
What? There's so many.
I've read so many books growing up. Not as much now because I'm busy working. Yeah. But I've read so many books. I have a favorite movie, but a favorite book.
Do you have at least a top 3 books that are your go-tos?
One of them is Homegoing by Yagi Yazzie. It was actually the first book by a Black author I ever read. Yes. And it was just the way that he told the story. It was a story of 2 twin sisters, half sisters, that were the first to be a part of the slave trade in their family. And it follows a lineage down until their descendants actually get married.
Wow.
And it's amazing.
Oh, that's a trip. I need to put that on my reading list.
It is so good. It's definitely something I recommend. So there's that. There's this book called Tiger's Curse. It's a trilogy series. There's 4 books actually, so it's more than a trilogy. I forget the name of the author, but she's a plus-size white woman from, I think, Portland, Oregon or something like that. And it takes from Indian mythology. And it was the first time I got into mythology other than Greek or Egyptian, because I am big on Greek and Egyptian mythology.
Okay, I'm big on Roman and Greek.
I rock with Roman, but it was always Greek and Egyptian for me. Those were big for me. And so when I got into Indian mythology, it was just entering this new world, and it was just so beautiful. I highly recommend that series as well if you can find it.
Yeah.
And then there's another series that I cannot remember the name of, but it's based on this group of individuals, they're teenagers that have Tourette's, and they have electrical capabilities. Because they were done testing on when they were younger, because they have Tourette's.
Super intrigued by this now.
It is so good. It's this one kid who has Tourette's and he's super self-conscious, but then he realizes that he can move things with an electrical current.
Wow.
And then there's a group of other kids that can do the same thing.
Okay.
I need to find what the name of it is and buy it, because I will try
and find that name and post it.
It is so good, but those are my top 3.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I was going to say how long did it take you, but you've already told us. So from January 1st.
Yes.
So what can we expect from Bastens Legacy?
I will say I've given my books to a lot of reviewers to read, and I didn't put this in there. I will say there's trigger warnings of sexual abuse and rape.
Okay.
It is in the book, so I should let you know that.
So it's definitely an intense read.
It is.
Would you say you at the, I don't know, should we call it the generic kind of everyone gets a happy ending kind of way, or wait and see?
It's a wait and see thing, but you will definitely see that she's going to deal with some traumas. She's already dealing with it at the end of the book after she experiences her sexual abuse and rape. And she also deals with traumas after the loss of her mother. So her mother is no longer with her. So she's dealing
kind of
with
like
that
a whole
as
journey
well.
that we're taking with her.
Exactly. And then it's going to hint to generational trauma dealing with not only the slave trade, but the treatment of Black slaves and the treatment of Black Bastet slaves.
I'm very excited.
So you're going to be seeing that. And then you're just going to see some good old-fashioned Jamaican family traditions, like communal like family stuff, like the community comes together. You're going to see some issues with her teachers not believing in her.
Okay.
So that's also something you will see.
Something everyone can kind of relate to.
Everything.
I think everyone's kind of had one of those teachers that was like, you're not going to be nothing.
Exactly.
And they kind of wait for that moment to be like, ha.
And also mental health, and I really wanted to put that in there.
I like that. Okay. You mentioned mental health, and I think that's really important because it's not something that's discussed very widely in the Black community. I know a lot of people have kind of tried to start touching on it now, but like, as you said before, having depression, being a Black Christian, I think Nigerians have the same mentality too, because I remember when I told my mom I had depression, she was like, we don't do that. And I'm like,
what is that?
Yeah, she was so confused. I was like, she's like, what is depressed? Just be sad, just be happy. And I'm like, no. She's like, when you become a Christian, you have the peace of God.
If you go to God.
Yeah,
just
oh my gosh, that was like her response for
everything.
everything. That was her response for everything. She's like, if you are depressed, it's because you're not praying. And I'm like, now I feel worse, but thank you.
It's like, at the end of the day, I do go to God for some things, but you do need a voice there that can give you tips in the here and now. And while I prescribe as a Christian Jamaican woman, there are certain parts of Christianity that I do not agree with. The treatment of the people with mental health is not really a big thing, but it's kind of one of those subconscious elements that people have, and I don't like that. And then again, of course, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, I just do not agree with that whatsoever. But I did want to put that in there because the protagonist is very much like me in terms of her sarcasm and wit. And I wanted to show what happens when you haven't fully processed the death of a close loved one. And I also put mental health in there for her very best friend, Michael. And we don't talk about mental health with Black men enough.
We don't.
And he has anxiety, and he also lost his parents, both of his parents. Jemilla never met her father, so she never really felt a loss, but she lost her mother. Michael lost both of his parents in a car accident and isn't able to get into a car without having a panic attack, right?
Because these are very real situations that can actually happen.
Yeah, and both of his parents were very educated. One of his, I actually forget who was who, but one of his parents were, both of his parents were mathematicians. And so he becomes a mathematician, and he's very good with numbers.
Nice.
But when he doesn't do something well, he gets very anxious. And that is something I feel a lot of Black kids can relate to. If they don't do something well, they feel like a failure. And that's something that we need to discuss. And so we touch on that a bit, but it's going to go more into detail in the next book.
I like this. I'm like hearing all of this stuff, and I'm just like, I want to pick up this book right now and start reading. Okay, so chapter 5. Question 5. What did you find most difficult when it came to writing Bastens Legacy?
Well, there's two aspects to this, because I kind of took Egyptian mythology and fashioned it to meld with Obeah, which is witchcraft, which is not considered to be good in Jamaican culture, but I wanted it to seem good in this way, kind of give it a different perspective. And so we didn't mention this, but yeah, basically she has superhuman abilities that she discovers.
Very cool.
So she can speak to the dead and speak to souls in another realm.
Okay.
She can cast protective spells and change the flow of time.
This is like full-on fantasy in its real world. I'm so excited.
And then she will soon discover that she can turn into a Black Panther.
Oh,
which is what Bast comes from. Bast is the Egyptian cat goddess.
Yes. If you didn't know that.
Yes.
It is touched upon in Marvel's Black Panther series, who Bast is. But not everyone reads comics like I do, as we've discussed in prior videos. But if you are into like mythology and stuff like that, you can actually find out so many different things. Like Egyptian mythology touches on some pretty cool folklore and stories and that sort of stuff. It's kind of a play. So there are some similarities to a Nancy Spider. I've found some of the stories tend to kind of weave in, and I think that's what I like most about African mythology as a whole. The fact that all of the stories seem to kind of find a way to intertwine and in an odd way kind of make Africa seem as one big place, just one big family, as opposed to separate countries within a continent. And I think that for me always is a win whenever I'm reading a book. Like, it's just the surefire way to get me hooked on a book. So again, guys, this book is looking more and more appealing as this interview goes on.
Aspect to it, to finishing it. Again, I was battling with my mental health, and a lot of the times I've let fear run my life in the past. I'll start something, but then fear will make me stop.
Yeah. So
the hardest thing for me was compelling myself to finish, even if it didn't turn out the best
way you wanted it.
And I'm a Virgo, so I'm a perfectionist, and I'm going to say that this book could have been more perfect, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I just wanted to finish. That was the main goal for me.
Okay, I like that, because fear does have a way of stopping us from reaching that potential. In a way, I think fear is kind of responsible for when we have these ideas and we're like, someone will do it, because we're too afraid to say we can do it ourselves.
Exactly.
It's always easier to be like, someone else will step up. So yeah, I think that's, again, it's the best way to confront your fears is to actually face your fears, like head on. And this is the manifestation of all of that. That is super cool. Like, your fear, you're looking at your fear right now. Like,
I know.
That is epic.
And also, I want to make a note, this cover was done by my very best friend, Carissa Soares from St. Albert, Alberta.
Awesome.
The company that I work with did a cover that I wasn't pleased with, and she did it and wowed me. So I want to give a shout out to Carissa. This book wouldn't have been possible without you, and this is going to be in every household in Canada.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay, next question. So you've kind of already answered this, but it was about putting yourself in the book. So a lot of authors tend to find a way to incorporate themselves in the character or make the character the complete polar opposite of who they are or who they would like to be. Do you feel, which you kind of already said, that you put a lot of yourself in the book, or just a moderate part, or did you try and hold back putting yourself in the book?
No, Jemilla is I'm Jemilla. Jemilla is me. We are the same. Her sarcasm, her wit, that's me. Her sadness with the loss of her family. I've never experienced that. That's new. That's something of Jemilla Freeman's own right. And then also just her second guessing herself, not believing in herself. That's 100% me. I tend to do that all the time. I put a little bit of myself in Michael as well. He's very much like Jemilla, but he's more calm, I would say. And I don't say that I'm calm. I'm like a crackhead. I'm crazy. I'm just a crackhead. But yes, Jemilla Freeman is basically me. So.
Cool. I like that. I like that. Okay. The next question, when it came to world building, now I'm always a massive fan of world building because I believe when you read, you take a journey. Whatever book you're reading, one of the reasons why I love fantasy so much is because you take a journey with the book. When it came to world building for Bastens Legacy, was it easy, like you already have the world built up, or did you kind of have to go on a progressive journey building the world?
For me, it was kind of easy because I'm one of those people who just does a lot of research. And when I was looking at Obeah and the kind of religion around Bast, it was actually very similar. So it was very easy for me to combine them, but then building the world in terms of what the Bastet women were like, the potions they used, the spells they cast, that was fun. But it did take a lot of thought because, again, this is going to be a trilogy series. So
you have to be sure what you're
I have to think about what it's going to be in the long term, right? But yeah, sometimes, I don't know if my friends remember this, but I would sometimes write in class when I didn't want to pay attention. Or
do it. Doodles or writing.
Exactly. Or my roommates at home, they'd see me writing, and sometimes I just close my eyes and I just go like this, just to imagine what she would be doing, or imagine what the smell would be like, or what the sound would be like. So
I think you have to do that. I think when you're writing something like scripts or stories, you kind of have a moment where you have to step into the world that you've built to kind of visualize it, and you sometimes may look kind of crazy when you do it.
I 100% think I do.
Yeah. Like the book, so the one I'm working on right now has a lot of archery and different sorts of combat and stuff, because I'm a massive fan of archery and sword fighting. So it's like I live alone, so luckily there's not many people who see me do the craziness, but there are times where I'll be out and part of the story will hit me, and I would just flow with it, because I'm like, if I don't flow with it, I'm gonna lose that part. And people will literally look at me and be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it'll make sense when you read the book.
Trust me.
It'll make sense. Not crazy. Later. Yep. So for anyone who saw her do any of the crazy stuff, it'll make sense.
I'm fine.
once you get the book. Okay, so the next question. This is my favorite one because I believe music is a soundtrack to life, and I love the power of music. So, does Bastens Legacy have a playlist or something you listened to when you were like writing?
Yes.
Something to go with it?
I do have a playlist. It's called Wellness 2 on Spotify. You can go listen to it. I curated it. It's just R&B and neo soul.
Okay.
There's a lot of SZA and Rihanna on there. There's Tyler the Creator. I have Nao, I don't know how you pronounce your name. I have Janae Aiko, I have Kaylani. Who else do I have on there? I have random songs and like stuff from random artists.
Was it like a smooth kind of transition from song to song, or do the songs kind of bounce?
A little bit, because there's also a lot of reggae on there. I have some Yellow Man on there, obviously Bob Marley, that's a given. I have some Childish Gambino on there. I have just a lot of the songs that just kind of put me at ease, and a lot of them are also songs that I listened to when I was crying, and strangely that gives me peace.
Okay.
Even when I was in my depressive mode, because I'm like, I can go back to it and be like, I'm not there anymore. So that's okay. I can listen to this and see how far I've come. So it's just...
So it was music to inspire you as well as the story as well.
And it's just very calming. Yes.
Nice. So it was called Wellness 2
on Spotify.
So guys, go check that out while you're reading the book.
Yes.
So when you get the book, get the playlist and let it flow together. Okay, so the next question. What was the most surprising thing about writing Bastens Legacy?
Surprising?
Other than finishing it. Because I think that's surprising for like any
I think that's it though. The fact that I could do it. I mean, everyone around me was always telling me that like I have the capabilities, because they're like, it's Jemilla, she can do it.
You can do
like,
it, yeah.
You've got the personality, you've got the skills. But I always just let fear like just be like that little voice in the side of my ear, just like, no, you're not going to do the best though. And it's like the ability to not do the best also comes from some traumas from childhood that, you know, we can get to in another interview or something like that. But I just didn't want to do something and not be the best at it. And to this day, I'm the same. So when I did it, even though it's not perfect, it's like, I can do it. That was what surprised me. And it's just like after all of that entire year of depression, like it manifested. Like I did it. Like by the grace of God and by the grace of me, I did it. So
nice.
Yeah, that was the most
awesome. Oh my gosh, I feel like recently, as we said in the beginning, there aren't a lot of people reading Black authors because a lot of people didn't know Black authors exist.
Yeah.
But do you feel there has been a surge in the amount of Black YA authors that there are nowadays?
Yes, but I think that's mostly just because I'm looking for them.
Okay.
And I'm just exposed to more platforms and more people that are reading Black YA authors. I follow a lot of people like Onyx pages on YouTube, Melanin Eclectic, Myona Reads, Perpetual pages. I follow a lot of them, and they read Black authors, like authors of color, and also authors that delve into like the LGBTQ reading, and it's just exposing me to a whole other world. So I don't know if there's a surge in Black authors, just a surge in readers searching for Black authors.
So more a surge in like the realization that we exist.
Exactly. And just trying to find new literature, because if you just look at one type of literature, they're not going to be able to tell the story of certain groups of people.
This is true.
You know, so I want to be able to tell stories that everyone can relate to, but I am also a person who has certain lifestyles that might inhibit me from doing so, and also certain privileges. Like I am a Black woman, and that comes with its own societal pressures, but I'm also a straight, cis, able-bodied Black woman. So I don't have to worry about using a wheelchair. I don't have to worry about someone like trying to hurt me because I'm gay or because I wasn't born into a female body even though I'm a woman. So there's just certain stories that you can respect and try to tell, but you may not be able to the best of your ability. And finding the authors that can will expose you to so many types of literatures and stories that will really expand your mindset. So that's what I would say.
Cool. So I'm going to quickly segue a bit from the questions, just because, so growing up, I loved reading like fantasies, reading comic books. I'm like a full-on comic book nerd. But one of the things, man, Come on.
I will one day. And I love superhero movies too.
Comic books, I don't know what it was for me. I think, so my first ever comic book was X-Men. And what drew me into it was Storm. Because it was the first time, hence, you know, like, come on guys. You know, like, it was one of the first times I saw a black woman in something I loved.
Right.
So it was like, wait, I exist, like I actually exist in this universe. Like I can exist in this universe. Because when you read comic books, you see a lot of people cosplaying. And it's always like white people. So you're like, how do I cosplay with like my skin tone's not the right color? How do I do that? So do you feel like that kind of, the lack of diversity in fantasy, the genre as a whole, do you feel that kind of drove you a tad when you were writing the book because you wanted to see more of yourself in fantasy stories?
That's it.
Okay.
I just didn't really see someone like that I could believe could be me. Like a lot of the books I loved, they would describe them and then like the way that they're loved or something, and I'd be like, oh, I mean, she's kind of like me, but I don't really see myself in her. And even though I describe her as a black woman, she has certain characteristics I feel like we can all relate to. And in my next trilogy series, you're going to find yourself being able to relate to every single character. So
nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to write like a novel,
a character that shows.
Yeah, it can be anybody. Yeah.
I think I like that. I think that's one of the reasons, like not even just the reasons, but one of the things I've loved most about reading more black authors. The fact that I'm opening a book and I'm hearing like hair descriptions and I'm like, that's my hair. I'm like seeing like skin color in like, and when I say seeing it, it's like when you read, you visualize.
Exactly.
But like I can see it. Whereas before, every time I read a book and it had like a black feature in it, it was like, and then she was short and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I can't technically exist in this universe. You want to be able to see
yourself in positive situations. Yes. Representation is so important, and that's why we're pushing for it so much, because when you don't have it, the lack of it can be brutal, and when you have it, you don't realize how the lack of it can affect you for the rest of your life.
It's true.
It's a privilege that many people do not have, so just respect it as much as you can.
Yes, couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, I locked my phone. Sorry guys, again. Okay, so what are you reading right now?
I'm reading this book by River Solomon named The Deep.
Oh,
it is so good. I'm only like 4 chapters in because I've been so busy and I couldn't get a physical book. I had to read it like on a OneDrive ebook, and I hate it.
I was gonna ask, do you prefer books or ebooks? Okay.
Books, physical books, something I can smell, something I can write it and highlight. I hate ebooks, but I had to do it and I really wanted to read it. I've been on hold for 3 weeks to get this book. And that's about dedication. This group of like mermen and merwomen in the very deepest like bottom of the sea that are descended from the women that were thrown overboard of the slave ships.
Okay, now I'm hooked because they've managed to flip the whole slavery script.
It was so good, and even just the way like they are very in tune with electrical impulses, but they can't hold on to the memory for so long, so they have one person who holds the memory for a year.
So like a griot.
Sorry?
It's like a griot. I believe that's what the term is. So in West African culture, they have the storytellers, the people who keep the stories for centuries. I believe that's what griots.
Well, no, they don't. They keep it for their whole lifetime, but they keep it for a year. While the other, they're called Wajinru. While the other Wajinru like live in peace, right? And they hold the memories. They have to deal with the pain, the trauma, and whatever. And then in a ceremony once a year, they give it to the rest of the Wajinru to experience. But then they take it all back. And they do that for the rest of their life, and they choose someone who's able to hold all of it because it's a lot. But this person who is, I think it's called the historian, and the process is called the remembrance. This historian doesn't feel like she can even take it anymore. Like I'm sorry. Yeah, she doesn't even feel like she can take it.
That was the both of us.
Oh wow. Oh, I have to make a post soon.
Cool.
Let me finish this.
Okay.
This historian doesn't feel like she can take it anymore. She feels like she's going to die. And it's amazing just the way that they talk about their ancestors, because when they are remembering, they're like, they look just like us because they have fins. But then they look closer, they're like, no, they're 2 legs. They call them 2 legs. And they're like, they look very much like us, but they don't have fins, they're 2 legs. And the very first Wajinru was born from a pregnant slave, or pregnant black woman who was enslaved, who was thrown overboard. And because you are living in water in the womb, she was born in water. And then she was fine. And it is just
See, that's a whole trip in itself, but it also answers the questions for those naysayers who are like, you can't have black mermaids for the Little Mermaid debacle.
Oh my god. So, Chloe is going to be the best Little Mermaid. Let me make that clear. Thank you.
If the Wajanru can exist, Chloe can be a black mermaid. But let that be known.
I heard about River Solomon from Onyx Pages, who is a blogger in Toronto. She's a book YouTuber. Mm-hmm. And River Solomon, I just wanted to see what her vibe was because her genre is very much like mine. And this is the first book I'm reading, but she has many others. I have a very long list of books I want to get to. And I've already fallen in love with her writing. River Solomon is amazing. I highly recommend reading The Deep if you can.
Cool. Do you have any advice for writers who are trying to get into it, or writers who have stories that are stuck inside of them? What would you tell them?
I would say definitely start. Just start. Just start typing. That's all you have to do. The story will come to you. If you're the type of person like me who needs to have a bit of a plan, write it down. Make sure to have a notebook and write it down. But just start. If you're contemplating whether to self-publish or go to a traditional publisher, I would definitely do some research. There's a book out there. I forget what it's called, but it has a list of literary agents. Perfect. And literary agents are basically like a movie agent. They're the middleman that get you into the office, into the room, so that you can get your book published with the traditional publisher. Sorry. Sure. But if you want to self-publish, you really have to do your research because there are a lot of companies that will just rip you off. You have to remember your market. You have to see where you want this to go in terms of the audience and how far you want it to reach. But more, wow.
Your hair's like, I am alive too.
My goodness.
Your hair's like, this isn't just about the book.
It's about me too.
I'm here.
Clearly. Good Lord. I can't. Never doing bangs again. Jeez. Okay.
The joys of natural hair. Just why I stay with braids.
Alright. I just took out my twist on Sunday. My Sunday twist. But yes, main suggestion, just start writing. And you never know. It may be the next bestseller, New York Times bestseller, next Canadian classic. Bestseller? Forget Anna Green Gables, Bastens Legacy. Hello.
That's what it is, guys. Thank you, first of all, for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I'm super excited. This is my copy, guys. This is my copy, but I'm still going to go and purchase a copy because I gift books. Well, this and I don't want to borrow my own copy.
A little card for you.
I didn't even peek inside! Guys! Okay, I'm actually going to do this on camera.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do this on camera. I hope there's nothing embarrassing.
No, it's not.
Oh, guys. Wow. Oh, I was like, it says, I hope you enjoyed getting lost in the story, which if you know me and you know I love books, you know I definitely will. If you can't find me, I'm in Bastens Legacy. Simple as that. This book drops on July 31st. Guys, if I tell you to do anything, it's get this book. It's get this book. There are so many good authors out there, and to be able to be sitting across from one is just an honor in itself. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for my copy.
Yes, no worries.
Guys, for the next few months, if you have any birthdays, this is most likely going to be your present from me. Just because when I read a good book, I have to share it, as you know. So, without further ado, that is it, guys. I'm gonna wrap it up until our next video. If you haven't checked out the last video, Song Association Awards, which was me versus Daniel, and it was a great game. Go check it out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, and all the other fun stuff that you're supposed to do on YouTube to have fun. Thanks for tuning in, and bye.